So welcome everyone to this joint webinar between the COMSA Secretariat and the 100% RE project team with live interpretation in French and English provided. Please indicate in the chat if you're struggling to activate the live interpretation, we can assist. And please, if you can rename yourselves with the French or English next to your name, so we can know if you would prefer French or English for the exercise that we're about to do. So this is an hour and a half webinar that comes from a request from our COMSA signatories in 100% RE counties who identified challenges in mainstreaming gender into their climate projects and specifically relating to renewable energy projects. So today we invited Mrs. Emma Atieno, who is a gender officer at the Kisumu County in Kenya, as well as two gender experts, Carole Tonqueux and Vanessa Tala, who have extensive experience with climate and energy projects in Sub-Saharan Africa. So we will start this webinar with a brief overview of COMSA and 100% RE projects, and then dive into the Kenyan context to do a case study. We will have a discussion on key challenges that you face with gender mainstreaming in your projects as local government officials, and then explore potential solutions with our gender experts. We will present resources that are tailored for local government officials that we developed at COMSA. And we will finish with a practical exercise in breakout rooms, so one in French and one in English, to apply this knowledge and these concepts to your project ideas and highlight key takeaways back in plenary. So I wish you a fruitful session, and I will hand over to my colleague, Karine Buma, to present very briefly our 100% RE project. Karine, over to you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. So I'm Karine Buma. I'm also Lucy's colleague, a senior specialist at ENG Africa, and also part of this project that is co-organizing this session. So I will be talking about very briefly about the 100% RE project and how this links to the webinar that we're organizing today. Next slide, please. So the 100% RE project, it's the full name of the project is 100% Renewable Cities and Regions Roadmap Project, and it is implemented by ENG in 3 countries. The project is funded by the IKI, or the International Climate Initiative, the German government, and the project has been implemented since 2019 and is meant to end at the end of this year. We are implementing it in 3 countries. Can move to the next slide. The project is being implemented in Argentina, in Indonesia, and also in Kenya. Yes. And for the case in Kenya, ENG Africa is leading implementation of this project in Kenya. And our focal cities, or our focal counties, are Kisumu County, Mombasa, and Nakuru counties. But of these 3, we have a deep dive county, which is Kisumu, and the other 3 counties are like learning from the process and the engagements that are taking place in the deep dive county. The project's objective is to improve access to or transition to renewables within the projects that are working in, and this is spread across 3 work packages. So there's a component on the multi-level engagement at the national level. There is capacity building and county level engagements, which is quite which falls also then within the scope of this session that we have now. Our objective is to provide capacity and strengthen and upskill the staff to be able to enhance the transition towards renewables. And then there is also the 3rd work package around identifying and setting targets and planning and towards implementation of renewable energy strategies for the County of Kisumu. The next work package is developing bankable projects implementation. And then lastly, consolidate all of these pieces and packages into knowledge pieces that can be disseminated within the council. So what we are doing, Lucy, if you can move to the last slide, we have a range of activities that we are implementing, and we've had a request recently as part of our priorities. We got a request from the county government through the capacity assessment that we conducted under the second for the county to be provided training on gender mainstreaming, how they can consider key gender, how they can ensure that there are important gender considerations across the different aspects of the projects that they are either identifying or implementing within the different departments in which they are working. Hence, we are part of this is to support our counties, our project counties, but also other African counties on cities and how they can use within their jurisdiction, how they can mainstream gender considerations, work that they are doing. That's a very short presentation, but if you want to know more about the project, we can access on our project website, and you can contact the project team here that has been whose emails are here, and I'm happy to answer some more questions about the project on the chat. Thank you so much, and thanks, Lucy. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Karine. I'm going to give a very brief overview of COMSA. I saw from the registration list that most of you are COMSA signatories, so it won't take long. So COMSA is the regional chapter of the Global Covenant of Mayors. It's funded by the EU, BNZ, and ACID, and it's an opportunity for local governments to further their climate and sustainable energy actions in Sub-Saharan Africa. So just to give an idea of the scope of COMSA, there are currently more than 360 signatories across 38 countries. And as you know, it's free to sign up. And once a local government signed up, they commit to develop a climate action plan that we call CIRCAPs. And this session today is about how to better integrate gender in developing these plans, but mostly once you develop these plans, when you have identified and prioritized project ideas, how to mainstream gender during the project development phase, all along the project cycle. So now I will hand over to Carole Tonke to dive into the Kenyan context.
Thank you very much, Lucy, for giving me the floor. Good afternoon, good morning, bonjour, abarisubui, depending on where you are. I'll be sharing my screen. And so my name is Carole Tonke. I am a senior urban environmentalist and also gender and energy access specialist. And thank you for the opportunity given to us to explore a bit gender mainstreaming in energy project or in energy space. So as Lucy explained, we're going to, this is the outline of our presentation. We're going first to look a bit at the gender and energy nexus, and then we're going to explore the Kenyan context in order to understand better gender mainstreaming perspective. And then we're going to finish with challenges to gender mainstream. There's a gender and energy nexus. Why? Because women and men have different energy needs linked to their gender roles. Women disproportionately bear the burden of energy poverty. Women and girls bear the main burden of biomass collection. Women are poorer than men. Women are generally disadvantaged in terms of ownership and access to land, natural resources, credit, information, and decision-making at all levels. Regarding the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 7, which is achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. There's also a link with SDG 7, which is ensure access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy for all. And SDG 13, take action, urban action to combat climate change and its impact. Why gender equality matters in energy access? Women participate in the energy sector as energy users, employees, participants in the energy value chain, and also as decision makers and stakeholders. Gender diverse workforce are good business practice. Gender equity improves economic prosperity for all citizens. Integrating women in the energy sector provides to women-affected energy decisions, and gender-sensitive energy regulatory policies can improve policy outcomes for women. I'm sharing with you 3 quotes because unfortunately there's so many times, especially in the African context, a misconception on gender. So those 3 quotes highlight the economic aspect of gender equality. You have one from International Monetary Fund, the other one from UNIDO, and I'm going to read the quote by former Cabinet Secretary of the Ministry of Energy in Kenya, which says, sustainable, affordable, and clean energy for all citizens is a key factor in the realization of the Vision 2030. We strive to ensure women do not just participate as beneficiaries, but play an active role as entrepreneurs in the entire energy value chain. What is the context? Lucy mentioned earlier that we're going to dive in the Kenyan context, since this webinar is a request from Kenyan counties. A report by the World Economic Forum published in 2022 ranked Kenya among top 10 African countries with most empowered women. Kenya has been ranked 57th among 146 countries globally. Thanks to policies to support gender equality, those policies are, among others, a general legislation requires representation by women on public decision-making bodies to be at least 33%. A national target was established in 2013 that stipulates that 30% of public procurement should come from women entrepreneurs, youth, and those with disabilities. And several enabling funds support women entrepreneurs in Kenya, including the Women's Enterprise Fund, Uwezo Fund, and the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, which provides funding for women groups. Gender mainstreaming in Kenya in climate, energy, and environment spaces, thanks to several policies, which acknowledge the need for women's enhanced participation in policy and decision-making in the sector, make general references to mainstreaming gender throughout the energy policy and energy programs and activities, a link between gender and sustainable and renewable energy is made. It is in this context that women most often are recognized as agent of change in the energy policies. Lastly, point out that increased awareness about access to green alternative fuels and renewable energy for women is a potential avenue towards gender equality and empowerment. On the left, you can see cities who are signatories of the convention in Kenya. There is Nakuru, Mombasa, Kisumu, among others. And we present some general country statistics. And since 2020, Kenya has been categorized as a middle-income economy with a stable macroeconomic growth of around 5% per annum. Among those statistics, one that we'd like to highlight is that 32.4% of households are headed by female. Gender is strongly recognized in Kenya's energy sector policy, and the Ministry of Energy has a specific gender policy. The 2019 Gender Policy in Energy provides a framework for gender mainstreaming in policies, programs, projects in energy, and commits to strengthening institutional framework for the employment of women in energy. And it's also important to mention that there are gender units, gender officers at the Ministry of Energy, but also at the county level. Then ensuring compliance with the Constitution of Kenya on gender, such as by engendering all energy policies, plans, budget, strategies, and programs with the Gender Committee. Increasing awareness of gender in the energy sector and integrating gender in programs and in monitoring and evaluation. Specifically, gender mainstreaming in energy programs and projects requires financial resources. The Minister of Energy allocates funds annually to support gender mainstreaming, for policy implementation, and for capacity building of staff within the ministry and also state power agencies. Globally, good efforts by the Ministry of Energy to engender projects like Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Program, the Last Mile Program, and the Biogas Program. Nevertheless, challenges to gender mainstreaming exist in Kenya or persist. Challenges that hinder gender mainstreaming across government ministries, departments, and agencies include inadequate gender disaggregated data. However, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics has made efforts to promote gender statistics from all sectors through its gender statistics section. Another challenge is related to monitoring and evaluation, lack of gender-sensitive objectives, and budget monitoring. Kenya has no system to track budget allocations for gender mainstreaming activities, so it is difficult to track and report related expenditures.
Merci beaucoup pour la parole, Madame Carole. Donc, je suis Vanessa Tala, expert genre et planification urbaine. Et donc, à la suite de tout ce qui a été dit, l'idée maintenant, c'est d'avoir aussi...
So following what was said, what we wanted to get feedback from you. We have a lot of participants today. We have French-speaking cities as well as English-speaking cities. And what we want about gender is to find out what are the difficulties that you're faced with in general. Is there a city that would like to tell us what are the challenges that they're faced with regards to mainstreaming gender? Because we've been working on mainstreaming gender in city projects. Is there a city that would like to take the floor to tell us what they've done, and someone who would like to share their experience, what worked, what didn't, what were the difficulties that were faced, so we can all share best practices? I would like to share the experience from our project in terms of access to energy. It was about cooking energy, because there are different projects with regards to this type of energy. And as part of our process, we decided to analyze and take stock on the situation. So we wanted to include the notion of gender in our information collection process, because to make sure that we also gather data on women, because usually when we talk about cooking energy is mainly managed by women in countries, and women are the ones who collect wood. So that is why we decided to focus on them. And what we did is that we did a consultation workshop in order to make sure that we had access to the right information. The goal was to really mainstream gender in our project. That's why we decided to invite a lot of different stakeholders. And we really insisted on the fact that we needed to include women, because socially speaking, it's a project that is mainly focused on women. And what we do as part of these workshops is that usually we have more women than men in the room, but at the end of the day, men are the ones who speak longer than women. We don't know why. So one of the solutions that we found is that we decided to organize sessions with female participants only, to make sure that we also collected their input, so that also in the implementation, they feel more involved. And we realized that they had a lot of insights, a lot of contributions to bring, and a lot of ideas, because we had created a framework where they could express themselves, and things were completely different. So that is the type of challenges that we were confronted with, because there's a social context that makes things such that in Central Africa and in Africa, generally speaking, women don't feel comfortable enough to take the floor. And there's also something else that I'd like to share with you, unless you want to take the floor. If so, feel free to raise your hand. But the other obstacles that you have is that in cities, we have a lack of knowledge, a lack of information, because when we talk about mainstreaming gender, people don't really understand what it's about. And people say, well, we don't have budget. So in terms of understanding what gender is about, is sometimes problematic. It's not just about men and women. There are a lot of underlying issues, and this is something that is not always understood by everyone. And for implementation as well, in CICAPs, cities tend to forget about who is going to implement gender policies, and there are missing resources, and that's the issue that we have. It's important to find the right person who's going to be able to implement these gender-related projects. So good understanding is crucial. We need to raise awareness, even the women within the city. We need to define what gender issues are, because then it's the city services that will bear the responsibility to say, well, for this type of project, we want to mainstream gender. And if the city doesn't do it, we need to show that we can have this approach. But for that, people need to understand what it's about. So these are some of the solutions. We need to raise awareness, train local teams on what it is, how to define gender issues, how to define solutions, and make sure that we have a participatory approach so that a lot of different players partake and contribute to the project. Of course, there are other challenges and probably a lot of solutions, but I do think that one of the main solution is the guides that were developed by the covenant, by the CONSA. They're very concise, but also very comprehensive and help us understand gender issues and how they can be mainstream in city policies. So unless someone else wants to take the floor, we will give the floor to someone else. Yes.
So I'll give the floor to Ada Omedi to share a little bit about the challenges that you're facing in your county for gender mainstreaming. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hi, good
Hello, good
afternoon.
afternoon.
Please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, my name is Ada Omedi, and I've been the Director Agenda in Kisumu County. I've worked so closely with ECLAIR from the time they started working with our Department of Energy. And I know there was a question on the challenges that we get when it comes to mainstreaming gender in the energy sector. Yeah, there's a challenge because the records we have with us here is that we have more women working on areas of green energy more than men. Like, for example, you get more women like about 10 or 8, and no men who are doing charcoal briquettes. When it comes to improved cook stoves, you get producers, and the producers go up to about 30 with only 3 men. And solar energy or solar lighting, lamps. With the lamps, you get more women promoting the solar lamps, about 28, and only about 8 men. Biogas, you find only who can do biogas for people in the homesteads are about 5 men, no women. Yet women are the ones who use this in their kitchen, and also when it comes to lighting. We find when it comes to the electric cooker, there's 1 woman who can construct an electric cooker and about 2 men. So you realize that there's an imbalance in this. It shows that more women are involved more than men. But when it comes to the decision making, find that less women are found or involved in the decision making. There was some document that was read earlier when we started, and it was showing that in our Department of Energy, they are both male and female working on gender issues. But funny enough, it is most men. That is the honest truth, that it's most men who are in the energy sector, even in the energy department. Yet now you find me, a female, in the gender sector. So why am I bringing that in? This attitude that gender is only female is still affecting our people up to today. You know, they have not accepted that gender is male and female roles. They only know that gender is for the female. And as Africans, you know very well, the kitchen belongs to the woman. And anything to do with the kitchen will be the woman, even looking for the biomass, looking for firewood, looking for your charcoal, or even the picture shown in our gender policy is of a woman making briquettes. You know, there's no man there, yet you can see that man, that work can be done very well by the man, and the women can do the cooking. So this is still an issue in Kisumu, and I just want to just with a few challenges here for people to see what we can do about them. And we have realized that it's important to ensure the active participation of women and men involved in the energy sector in the process of looking at if there's a policy. When we are talking about policy gaps, when we are talking about gender analysis, when we're talking about audits, we should ask ourselves that who are on the table? Is it an active participation of women and men, or is it only men? And yeah, because all these people who are in the same household, they are both users. Men benefit from the cooking and they benefit from the lighting. And it's very important that both male and female are on the table. Another thing is that there should be an alliance, because most of the organizations that have assisted us when it comes to identifying women and men who are promoting green energy are the civil society organizations. They have really assisted us in this. So we should have a multi-stakeholder alliance involving the civil society, involving the private sector, involving the government, to be able to work on these challenges. And I know very well they'll be able to influence whatever discussions are on the table and agreements that will be made. And also there'll be a real and genuine commitment to gender mainstreaming in the energy sector. At the moment, we can say we are trying, but we cannot say that gender has completely been mainstreamed in the energy sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Omedi, for sharing your experience and also the solutions that you are suggesting. But first of all, I would like to congratulate you, because despite the challenges that you have presented, the Kenyan context is an enabling context, right? Really enabling environment where a lot of efforts have been made related to gender issues and in gender mainstreaming. And what I think it's important to highlight here is that Kisumu is the third city of the country. And at Kisumu county level, you have a gender department, which is not the case in so many other countries. So, which means that it's not only at the ministerial level, it also goes at the county level, which is very important to mention for other cities who are participating in this webinar. Among the challenges that you presented, it's imbalance. And one of the highlights and key points is decision-making. You also highlighted the level of participation, and all those key points are presented in the guide, the COMSA guide, which is presented here to support activities, gender mainstreaming activities in energy projects and programs. You will find in that guide a lot of recommendations in what is best to do, best practices in order to gender mainstream. But we are also taking notes on your recommendations, because of course there are general best practices, and then each context, each country, each county has specificities. So as solutions that you are recommending, you recommend an active participation of all stakeholders, and on top of that, multi-sectoral alliance, multi-stakeholders alliance, which is important in order to have some progress, to make some progress in gender mainstreaming activities in the whole value chain. What also it's important is that we mentioned that there's a lack of data, gender disaggregated data, but the good side of your presentation is that you have detailed information and data on women in each sector and in each activity, which is really important because at least you have a baseline, which is not the case in other counties. Concerning another challenge maybe that Vanessa was talking about, which is not the case obviously in Kenya or Kisumu, it's awareness. You mentioned the fact that gender, unfortunately, is always associated to women, and then gender is always a woman thing, and they don't, a woman affair, they don't see above. In most countries, there's a lack of awareness, and the other major issue is that even when they are aware, they don't know where to go and get the information. So how to get in touch with experts in order to support them in gender mainstreaming, other awareness, or gender mainstreaming activities. So Lucy, I don't know if we still have time for discussion.
Can I mention something?
Of course.
Maybe we ourselves can do something about it. I mean, we can also do our part by making sure that whenever we have an audience, that like the workshop which is going on, let us make people aware of gender issues being important, in energy. Why gender is important in energy, what has been done and what hasn't been done. Just that awareness, so that every audience that we have can know that gender has to be incorporated in all of our meetings, all of our discussions, so that I think that would be the move that can assist others who are not around to know that we are already aware, and we want everybody else to be aware that there are gaps and there are priorities. And the priority here now is to make sure that gender is mainstreamed in energy.
Thank you. Very well said. A very important point taken in consideration. Thank you. Over to you, Lucy.
Thank you very much for these valuable inputs. We are going to move on to a very brief presentation on some tools and guides that the COMSA initiative tried to develop to help with that process. And so I'm going to share my screen briefly, and then we can continue the conversation. So gender equality is a priority for COMSA, and GIZ developed last year a few resources with technical assistance from ENG Africa, including guides, very short 10-page guides targeted at local government officials to mainstream gender in their climate action. So I'm going to present these briefly, and that could be the ground for more discussion and experience shared after this presentation. So the first guide is on gender inclusive participatory approaches. So how do we apply a gender inclusive participatory approach to the development of a project? So these guides are available both in French and English on the COMSA website. And it shows step by step how to better mainstream gender in projects. And it's illustrated with case studies from cities across Sub-Saharan Africa. So this first guide clarifies the level of participation that you can reach in while developing a project. It explains key terms such as, anything from transmitting information to consultation, active participation. That's where we want to be, to have a truly inclusive participatory process when developing a project. It details, after explaining these, the gender inclusive participatory approach in the context of climate and energy projects, the guide lists all the tools that can be used by local government officials throughout the project cycle and illustrate the use of these tools with case studies. So we can see here the project cycle from the identification of a project to the development of the project to implementation and monitoring and evaluation. So in each of these phases, there are several tools that can be used to ensure that that the process is truly inclusive and participatory. So some of the tools that are included in this guide include mapping of stakeholder, doing a gender stakeholder engagement strategy at a very early stage of project development, organize exploratory walks in the city to better understand the point of view of certain population groups and what they're dealing with in a city, women's group discussion, etc. So this guide details these and show examples on how to use them. The second guide that we developed is how to conduct a gender analysis for your project. So this, we know, is something that more and more donors are requiring now. For every project, every climate and energy project that is developed, and there are a gender analysis that is needed. And so how do we develop this gender analysis? So we know that's the case with the Green Climate Fund, the Adaptation Fund, IDRC funding. Now it's mandatory to have a gender analysis at the beginning of any project that is developed with them. So this second guide shows step by step how to develop this gender analysis, illustrated with case studies again. So throughout the project cycle, we see where the gender analysis fits. So it's at the very early stage, at the project identification step of the project development, that we need to develop a gender analysis. And that's to really understand what's the gender dynamics of where the project is going to be located. So the gender analysis showed the following 5 steps. To develop this analysis, you first need to determine who will conduct the gender analysis. Then gather the information on gender dynamics at the country or regional level. Because we know at the national level, there's a lot of resources that can be used, a lot of database that have sex disaggregated data that can be used. And the guide lists a few of these resources. Step 3 is to collect data on gender dynamics at the local level and in the specific sector of the project. Step 4 is to analyze gender responsiveness and expertise within the project team. So it's important to have gender expertise that's involved throughout the development of the project. And lastly, the gender analysis will provide key recommendations to make the project more gender responsive. So we encourage you to go and have a look at these guides. It's full of resources, all the database that exist that are relevant for your country, as well as case studies from across the continent. Finally, we have a glossary of key terms because there are some concepts that still need to be unpacked and understood. So this short glossary just lists these key terms. And it's also available in French and in English. And we will give the link to these resources in the chat as well as after the webinar. So now we're going to move on to a practical exercise to try and apply these concepts and see if there's any other local government that want to share their experience. So I'm going to hand over back to Mrs. Tanker. Thank you.
So we're going to explain the objective of the exercise. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So over to you, Vanessa, and then I'll come back after for another exercise. So we'll have, let's say, between 10 to 15 minutes for this first exercise.
Thank you. Donc, l'exercice, c'est vraiment d'appliquer l'un des outils qu'on a reçus, qu'on a tout à l'heure écouté. Donc, Lucie a présenté les outils de la Convention des maires et parmi les outils, on a un guide pour faire une analyse du genre. Donc, on a pensé à une idée de projet donc, concernant l'énergie, donc à la construction d'une mini-centrale hydroélectrique dans une commune rurale de votre pays. L'idée première, c'est d'abord de faire deux équipes en fonction des origines, mais bon, vu qu'on est tous là, donc l'idée, ce sera simplement de regarder étape par étape, de prendre peut-être une personne, ça peut être une personne du Togo, par exemple, qui a une maîtrise d'une des villes, ou bien si vous avez dans la salle, s'il y a une personne qui a déjà, par exemple, un projet en rapport avec l'énergie qui est en train d'être développé, on peut également prendre ce projet-là. On n'est pas obligé simplement de prendre celui-ci. Donc, s'il y a d'autres projets avec lesquels vous êtes venus à ce webinaire, ce serait bien.
So if you have other projects that you can use to see if there are synergies and apply the gender analysis. One of the steps is to identify the person who will be in charge of the gender analysis, for instance. So that is the exercise. I don't know if we have people who have already raised their hand. Do we have a volunteer? Is there a city that's already started implementing a project in this sector? It could be a project on hydroelectric energy, solar energy, lighting, or this type of projects. Do we have volunteers? Yeah. Yes, Vanessa. I don't see any hand raised. I'm going to look at the chat to see if we have someone who'd like to take the floor. For now, I don't see anyone, any message in the chat. Oh, we do have a volunteer now. Emma?
La parole, c'est pour un projet que vous avez déjà.
Yes.
Emma, you have the
Yes.
floor.
Thank you, Emma. You have the floor. So kindly, can you introduce yourself? Tell us what you're doing, and then we'll start this exercise. Even though I'm sorry, it's written in French, but we're going to translate for you.
Okay, so my name is Emma Wanjiru. I'm an environment officer, an energy and a climate change officer from Nakuru County, that's in Kenya. And well, I wanted to just give a few remarks. So I'll give in regards to Nakuru County, that's in Kenya. We have a project that has rolled out on the solar PV energy, and mainly it started, say, 2 months ago, where we did a bit of feasibility study to make people aware of what will be happening on the ground, and actually sensitizing them on the need to now shift to clean and affordable energy. And I also talk about climate change, which has been the major aspect, especially in Nakuru County, where we have been looking at actually looking at the vulnerable groups, especially now that we've been forming the World Climate Change Planning Committees, which are rolling out to now address the climate change issues and mitigate them at the local level. So number one, when we were doing our elections, we made sure that we mobilized more people who are even coming from the vulnerable groups. So you'll find in our groups, in the World Climate Change committees, we have one person, two people actually living with disability, a male and a female. We have one woman, we have the youth. So we cut across all sectors to take care of each and every person. And also to add on that, we were also even forming the policies, which is a very important aspect when we form policies, that we involve these people and sensitize them on the need to be on board, because the policies that you come up with will translate what will happen on the ground. So this informed even formation of the climate change action plan at the local level. So that is what probably I would share.
Thank you very much, Emma, for sharing Nakuru experience. So if we relate that to the COMSA guide, is the one who presents all activities related to participation. And what you highlighted is the fact that at a very early stage, you made sure that, first of all, there's a feasibility study in your solar PV project, and most importantly, being sure the level of participation, right, of vulnerable groups and persons with disabilities. And also, you were sharing with us the importance of involving all stakeholders when developing policies in energy projects, but not only in wider projects that are climate change issue-related projects.
Right? Yes, right.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. I'll have a question. So in this first exercise, that is, my apologies, written in French, is the first step is who is going to do the gender analysis. So taking in consideration your experience, who do you believe, or who did the gender analysis in the case of Nakuru County?
I would say the government and also the partners who came on board to help us do the gender analysis.
Okay, so we have for other counties, so you have, let's say, a response to the first question. I'm not sure I can see some comments in the chat box. No comments so far. So Nakuru was sharing its experience regarding the process, gender mainstreaming process at an early stage level, at the beginning, in fact, of the project. Any other comments? So for English speakers, so in this exercise, we divided the 5 steps. The first one is gender analysis. The second one is collecting data and information, and everything that is related to the context, to the gender context. And then the third step, it's a gender dimension at the local level and in the energy sector, but specifically related to the project. Step number 4 is awareness and expertise in the project team. And step number 5, recommendations in order to have a gender-sensitive project. Any contribution, examples, or maybe challenges? Maybe we have participants that are facing some challenges, and this exercise with the different steps will help you to find some solutions. If you have examples that you could share with us. Maybe from Togo or Côte d'Ivoire. I've seen Togo, Côte d'Ivoire in the room. Vanessa, please let me know if there are other countries or county represented. I'm checking at the same time. Is there anyone from Mombasa County? Sorry, I'm checking. I can't see any participant from so far from Mombasa, because it would have been interesting
Je cherche. Emma.
To share the...
I had a question.
Oui, donc je voulais demander par rapport au projet, est-ce qu'elle peut peut-être partager un peu les recommandations qui ont découlé?
Could you share recommendations, especially for stage 5? And by the way, thank you very much for sharing your experience. But we would like to know the recommendations and the lessons learned from the gender analysis that was done as part of your project. So we've understood that you've created a team that was representative, but in the implementation of the project, is there something else that you'd like to share with you in terms of best practices?
Est-ce qu'elle m'écoute ou bien...
Peut-être le temps de la traduction. Emma, over to you. So Vanessa, first of all, thank you again for sharing your experience. And Vanessa wanted to have information if you are able to share regarding recommendations related to the project you share, the solar PV project. Do you have any recommendation that you would be able to share with us? Because the goal of this exercise is within each step to highlight challenges, but at the same time to provide some solutions.
Well, I will try cover what the challenges were, especially when we were doing the formation. So number one, the challenges were getting in touch with this, probably, let me say, the women. Sometimes women shy away from actually wanting to be part of the energy sector, even speaking out their minds. But constantly they've formed, I would say, groups that make them more open in sharing and forums for them to share and get out their ideas. And we've given them open spaces for them to come have conversations with us. So that was one of the ways that we were able to create a ground for them. Another thing is that also reaching out to the persons with disability. There are groups that they've formed that we are able to reach out to the group heads for us to get a chance to meet these people who we can actually now involve in the projects that we are now carrying out in Nakuru County, say the solar PV project. So I would say those were the challenges for us getting in touch with these people. But now, now that we've made a ground with them and actually known the groups that we can reach out, the women groups that are there, then it has been easy for us to have mileage on our projects.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So this highlights, in fact, the mapping step, which is key, which is really important in order to make sure that we have an inclusive and active participation. And so you provided to them what we call safe spaces. I imagine it was focus discussion groups with both women and also a person with disabilities. Thank you, because on one side, you presented the challenges that you faced, and on the other side, solutions that you came out regarding the challenges that you face in order to carry out your project. Thank you, Emma. Vanessa?
Thank you.
Have another question? One aspect that I would like to maybe discuss with the participant is information related to the gender context in a country or in a region. What we have noticed is that it's not easy to get information related, when I mean information policies, data, gender disaggregated data for a country, and it becomes more difficult when it comes to county and, of course, remote areas. So this is maybe the kind of challenges that counties are facing. As you know, in Africa, data issue is critical, and specifically gender data. So where do you go? Where do you look for those information? Where can you get those kind of information? We have shared the experience of Nairobi with the Kenyan National Statistics Bureau, which provides data. It is not the case in all countries. Some countries have more data than others. So where do you go to get those information? We'd like to have the feedback of some counties who are in the room. So to do this gender analysis, you need to be aware of the context, and you need to do a description, and you need information, data. What do you do? Where do you get that information?
Madame Ada, je vais prendre la parole par rapport à cela.
Okay, you have the floor.
You have the floor, Madame Ada.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that we participated in contributing to the 2019 gender disaggregated data of the Kenya Bureau of Statistics. And they only chose 10 counties as a pioneer. So that's why you find there's some more information in some counties, others not in all counties.
Okay, so, sorry. So you said that you participated, and it is not the case of all counties, right?
Yeah, they picked 10 counties.
Okay, 10 counties.
Yeah, in Kenya.
Which is a good start. At least you have data from some counties, and I believe it's the first step, and then you'll get more information. So why did they get in touch with you in order to participate?
They were picking the directors of gender
Directors of gender. Okay.
Yeah, from the 10 counties to participate in the desegregated data. But we realized that they didn't include all areas because we realized we have been asked questions when we came back on youths, on the area of youths. They were only doing up to a particular age. You could see the age between about 20 to 35 was not included because they were doing adolescents. And mostly they were doing the early and mid adolescents, that is up to 18. So that was a gap. Another gap was on GBV issues. There was no data on SGBV or GBV. So that was also another
gender-based violence.
Yeah, gender-based violence and sexual gender-based violence. That was also another gap.
Okay.
And I can say there was also a gap in the energy sector. How many use this form of energy? How many don't? There was also those gaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, which is what we have noticed also is that there are a lot of gaps, of course, in gender data, and specifically in the energy sector, even though there are more and more research going on in most African countries, data is still a major issue. I was asking you this question because, like, for instance, in ECOWAS region, there are gender focal points or gender focal units at the Ministry of Energy, or at different power agencies. It is, we say, mandatory in ECOWAS region, which is not the case in other countries where you don't find the right person to discuss with or to share information, which is the gender focal officer, gender focal unit, depending on the organization. This is also one of the issues and one of the challenges that counties are facing. As I was telling you when we started, you are a county and there's a gender officer. In most counties in African countries, at the county level, unless it's one of the major cities, in secondary cities, you will not find a gender officer or gender unit or gender focal point. So it was easier for them to collect data from you because you're in charge of gender. Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Omadi?
I'm happy that you noticed that and you brought that up. It's an issue even in some counties in Kenya, but we are happy that the governor we have, so it's the leadership.
Of course.
Yeah, it's the governor made sure that we had a gender department led by a female as the head of that department. So I can say we are doing well when it comes to that area.
Fantastic. So you even have a gender department, which is big, right? Okay. Yeah. I believe this is a very interesting showcase. And that also maybe explain why Kisumu, Mombasa, and Nakuru requested this gender training. Maybe for two reasons: in order to share what you are doing, and also to create more awareness on gender issues and gender mainstreaming in energy-related projects.
Yeah, I can say creating awareness and making sure that gender is mainstreamed in energy projects. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much. Est-ce qu'on aurait des exemples
Do we have examples of focal points? In cities, do we have focal points? City focal points who are present today and who are attending this seminar? Is there a city that could take the floor and tell us a little bit more about the gender focal point or in their city or in large cities? Do we have someone who would like to share their experience? I don't see any hand raised. Well, what I can say, well, we wait for people to raise their hand because I'm sure we'll have people who will raise their hand. What I can say is that when it comes to data in the guide that was shared by Lucy earlier, there are links that can help you have access to information and data. And it can be very interesting because in everything that we do, it's important to have access to data in order to justify choices or a direction that we take. That's all I wanted to say while waiting for focal points to take the floor. I think we have someone from Côte d'Ivoire. It would be great if the person from Côte d'Ivoire could take the floor to share their experience.
Okay, so meanwhile, let's get back to the steps. As Vanessa was mentioning, there's a lot of information in the guide and a lot of resources and tools that we'd like you to review. And this takes me to one of the points we wanted to discuss is related to awareness, gender awareness and expertise. But starting with awareness. Capacity building is key in gender activities, gender mainstreaming activities in all sectors and particularly in the energy sector. So can someone share an experience related to relevant training in gender mainstreaming? Or maybe which kind of, this is a training, or which kind of training you are looking for or you are expecting to better understand or to better integrate gender dimension in energy projects or programs. So far, I can see that Kenya is leading. So I'll invite other countries to share their experience. Okay, Mrs. Omedi, you have the floor.
Yeah. I'm one of the persons who requested that we have a training on mainstreaming gender in the energy sector. And as mentioned before, we wanted to be trained on how to, throughout the project cycle, or if we have a project, how do we do the gender analysis? Can be trained on that. And also knowing our particular stakeholders and how we can map them out. You know, if we'll have a questionnaire or something that will help us in mapping out the stakeholders. It's very important. All in all, why I was thinking this is very important for us because we have colleagues who are coming in, newly employed in the gender department, in the gender and the energy department. We have a gender mainstreaming policy in the county. We have also a gender mainstreaming policy in the energy department. But the ones who are newly employed do not know how to mainstream gender or in this program, projects or programs that come up in energy. So if they are trained on what they're supposed to do, then it would be very good for all of us, you know. That's why I requested, I was one of the people requested for a training on gender mainstreaming.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing the reasons of this request. So first of all, as solutions, as tools, you have POMSA guides. When you go through those guides and you review it, you'll find answers to your questions. And also those guides include different tools and additional resources. Nevertheless, we're going to share after this webinar 2 checklists to facilitate when you're carrying out gender analysis, the kind of questions you need to look after, and also in order to guide you during different steps and within all the circle of the project circle. So maybe we can move to another exercise. Vanessa?
Carole et Vanessa,
oui,
simplement
Lucie.
pour vous dire qu'on atteint la fin.
Karen, Vanessa, we are reaching the end of this webinar, unfortunately, so we might have to move to the conclusion and wrap up. Thank you, noted, well noted. Then I will stop sharing my screen. So how should we proceed? Lucy? Well, first, feel free to ask if there are questions about the content of the training, and then we can conclude by reminding the key takeaways. We will also share the links to the resources that were mentioned during the webinar in the chat, and we will also send them to you via email after the end of the webinar. Are there any questions? I am sharing one of the exercises. In the meantime, if you have questions, if there's something that wasn't clear enough, Carole, you can also show the exercise quickly, because I think it can also be used by the teams as a source of inspiration, and they could be used in order to raise awareness, to change your mainstreaming within municipal teams. Can you see my screen? Not yet, no. In 1 minute. Let me share my screen again. I thought you could see my screen, my bad. Can you now see my screen? Yes, we can.
So what
Great.
we had in mind was the first exercise was in order to make sure that we have a good level of participation. It was a gender sensitive approach with key questions, and we had an example of a woman light up rural Kenya project, and the idea was to identify the different stakeholders and in order to have a stakeholder analysis. And the idea was to take you through key questions, and those questions would guide you in order to make sure that you're taking in consideration all stakeholders. So that was the first exercise. The second exercise we had in mind was a gender-sensitive approach And for that, the case study was a gender mainstreaming project in the Rural Electrification Agency in Uganda. And we thought of dividing and opposing a traditional project and a gender sensitive project. So the idea was for you to have a clear view of the difference between a traditional project and sensitive projects going through different activities and highlighting key elements in order to make sure that you have a gender sensitive project. And lastly, the idea was to share with you example of project activities in a gender mainstreaming project. I'm sure Kenyans are well aware of this very important project, the Menengai Geothermal project, which is a major project that was implemented in Kenya. So in this project, 3 activities were carried out, gender sensitive activities, and we wanted to have a discussion on those activities, and also to find out if participants were able to propose gender sensitive activities. And the last exercise is the one we follow together. So that's it concerning the exercise that we had in mind. Apologies, our idea was to have 2 exercises in 2 groups. So sorry about that, but we'll be sharing first of all, the exercise and also the results of those exercises after this webinar. As a summary, I can say that we had a very interesting sharing experience coming from mainly Kisumu County and also Nakuru County. And they took us through, first of all, the challenges they faced in gender mainstreaming, and then what was really interesting and relevant for us, it was the fact that they shared solutions, how they overcome different challenges, and also recommendations to go further to improve gender mainstreaming in energy projects or programs in Kenya and also in other countries. So we had a very interesting conversation with both Emma and Ada, and thank you for that. Concerning other counties, we hope that what was shared during this exercise was helpful for you. We invite you to review the guides that have been shared, COMSA guides, where you will find all information necessary for you in order to implement and in order to implement gender mainstreaming in your different energy programs, plans, projects, and all activities that you are carrying out. I can see that Lucy is sharing additional information in the chat box, so please have a look. And she'll be sharing also the link of those, unless she did it already, of the guides who are available both in French and in English. Vanessa, maybe if you have a point that you'd like to add.
Non, pas grand-chose à ce qui a été dit.
No, there isn't much to add to what was said. I would just like to thank the participants, and we really hope that everything that was said today is going to be useful to you and will help you mainstream gender in all of your projects.
Thank you again, Emma and Ada, for your insightful contribution. And we look forward to a next training. Over to you, Lucy.
Thank you, everyone. We're a few minutes late, but we will send the recording of this webinar. And if you do have time, it would be really great to fill in this very short form, a survey, just to see what are the next gender webinars that you would like to see and what topics specific you'd like to discuss, so we can really tailor it to your needs as local government officials. Thank you so much, and I'll send all this material by email very shortly.